I hadn't even planned on stopping by the marina that morning. I was just dropping off a spare part for Seabreeze before heading to work. But the moment I turned the corner and saw a crowd gathered at the dock, phones out, people pointing and laughing, I felt that familiar HOA-induced dread crawl up my spine. And then I saw it. My boat, my Seabreeze, cruising out of the marina without me. Music blasted so loud I could feel the bass shaking the shoreline. A pack of women danced on the deck, waving drinks, taking selfies like they were filming some discount music video. And at the helm, standing there like she owned the entire ocean, was Karen. Pink sun hut, sunglasses, smug smile. "Girls' day out, baby," she screamed across the water. I swear, my soul left my body for a second. She had actually stolen my boat. My boat that I paid for, maintained, upgraded, insured every last screw, bolt, and dollar. And she had the audacity to act like she was hosting the world's saddest yacht party. But what she didn't know, what made this whole thing even sweeter, was that she had just stolen the wrong man's vessel. Because I don't just live near the water, I work with the Coast Guard. Before I dive into this absolute circus of HOA chaos, drop your location and local time in the comments. And hit subscribe, because here on Neighbor Wars HQ, the drama never sleeps. Karen had been a problem long before she hijacked my boat. Anyone who's ever dealt with an HOA Karen knows the truth. They don't have boundaries, just opinions, usually loud, usually entitled, and always rewritten to match whatever reality exists inside their head. She lived just a few doors down in what should have been a peaceful waterfront community. Sunrise walks, calm mornings, quiet evenings. But when Karen moved in, she brought her own brand of maritime dictatorship. Her first complaint came the day she saw me polishing the chrome rails on a Saturday morning. She marched over in her signature bright pink blazer, her version of a superhero cape, and said, "It's really unfair that some people have boats and some people don't." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. According to her, boats should be considered shared community amenities. As in, my boat, bought with my money, maintained with my time, should be available for her personal use. And that was only the beginning. Within weeks, she escalated like only a true HOA Karen could. Notes on my door demanding community boating days. Random confrontations about how her nephew deserved a luxury ride. Complaints to the HOA board claiming I was creating division by refusing to share my property. Fortunately, the board told her that's not how boats work. Unfortunately, Karen doesn't process reality like the rest of the world. But lucky for me, I had Jim, my neighbor, my best friend, and the unofficial documentarian of all HOA disasters. Wherever chaos struck, Jim appeared. I don't know if he had a sixth sense or a scanner tuned to Karen frequencies, but he always had iced coffee in one hand and his phone camera in the other. He'd whisper, "She's going to explode one day." Turns out, he wasn't speaking metaphorically. Seabreeze wasn't just a toy, it was a project I spent years restoring. Teak decking, upgraded navigation, custom upholstery. She was a beauty because I made her a beauty, and Karen knew that. She admired the boat constantly, though always with that jealous, passive-aggressive sigh, followed by, "Some people have all the toys." Still, even with all her entitlement, I never imagined she'd be bold or dumb enough to steal it. But when I saw her dancing on my deck with her entourage that morning, everything clicked. This wasn't a random impulse. Karen had planned this. She finally got her community boat day, except the community was just her and her equally delusional HOA friends. One was live streaming. One called Karen, Queen of the Marina. And Karen? She was posing like a discount cruise director. I just stood there frozen, my brain buffering like some kind of outdated computer. Jim materialized beside me, choked on his iced coffee, wiped his mouth, and whispered, "Bro, tell me this is a prank." It wasn't. The crowd on the dock kept growing, because watching Karen steer a boat was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. You didn't want to see it, but you physically couldn't look away. Then she spotted me, and her grin stretched into something between victory and pure delusion. "Don't worry," she screamed, "just taking her for a quick spin." A quick spin with 4 drunk passengers and absolutely zero boating experience. Jim muttered, "Buddy, you're legally allowed to pass out right now." But instead, my mind snapped into perfect clarity. There was no reasoning with her. No HOA complaint form. No polite conversation. This was vessel theft, and I knew exactly who to call. Karen didn't know it, but she had just messed with someone who worked with the Coast Guard. And when I saw her jerking the wheel, overcorrecting her turns, drifting too close to other wakes, nearly tossing her friends overboard, this stopped being an HOA drama and became a safety threat. I dialed. Jim leaned in. Calling the HOA? I shook my head. No, I'm calling the Coast Guard. His eyes widened. Oh, this just got good. The dispatcher picked up with the calmest voice I'd heard in months. Meanwhile, my blood pressure was somewhere in the stratosphere. United States Coast Guard. What's your emergency? My vessel has been stolen, I said. That got his attention. Rapid tipping. Do you have a visual? Oh, I have a visual, I said, staring at Karen and her pink sun hat as she pretended to be the queen of spring break. By the time I described the situation, the dispatcher had heard enough. Patrol boat en route. ETA 5 minutes. Jim whistled. 5 minutes? Bro, this is karma with express shipping. And for the first time that morning, I felt relief. But it wasn't until the Coast Guard vessel cut through the water toward her, sleek and silent and fully in control, that the knot in my stomach finally loosened. Sea breeze. An officer called through a bullhorn. Reduce speed and prepare to be boarded. Karen froze. Her friends froze. Her confidence cracked like cheap plastic. She screamed back, "We're on a private cruise." The officer repeated the order. Clearer, louder, less negotiable. Jim bent over laughing. Bro, she thinks she can argue with the Coast Guard. And then, because Karen's brain is powered entirely by chaos, she panicked and did the absolute worst thing possible. She yanked the wheel and hit the throttle. Sea breeze lurched forward. Wake exploded behind her, and she barreled straight through a no wake zone. The officer shouted again. Karen screamed, "I'm in control." She was absolutely not in control. The moment Karen gunned the throttle, everything spiraled. A pelican flapped away in panic, a kayaker nearly tipped over, and Jim almost dropped his phone because he was laughing too hard to breathe. Bro, she's about to catch a felony, he wheezed. But I wasn't laughing. My boat, my Sea Breeze, was bouncing violently across the waves. She was never meant to take impacts like that. My stomach twisted into a knot. And then it happened. Karen looked back for half a second, long enough to completely lose control. Sea Breeze slammed into a buoy with a metallic crunch so loud it echoed across the marina. Karen pitched forward, screaming. Her friends tumbled across the deck. The boat jolted hard, then settled at a painful, crooked angle. My heart dropped. The Coast Guard moved instantly. In seconds, they boarded her, killed the engine, and pulled Karen away from the controls. And that's when she exploded. Let go of me. I'm borrowing this boat. I have rights. One officer calmly cuffed her like he'd done. This 1,000 times. Jim whispered, best day of my life. Karen's friend were helped up and checked for injuries, while an officer called toward shore. Are you the owner? I raised my hand. Karen snapped her head around and glared at me like I'd crashed my own boat. This is your fault. Why would you call them? Because you stole my boat, Karen. I borrowed it. You would have said no. Jim choked laughing. Legal mastermind, folks. The officer beside her exhaled like a man who's seen one too many idiots. Ma'am, you are being detained for unauthorized vessel use, reckless endangerment, and failure to comply with maritime regulations. Karen gasped like he accused her of treason. Even handcuffed, surrounded by witnesses, she still believed she could talk her way out. Wait, you're not pressing charges, right? She begged. I glanced at my boat, dented, scratched, humiliated. Then I looked at her. For the first time that morning, I smiled. Before I could answer, the Coast Guard guided her toward their patrol boat. Her friends huddled awkwardly on the other side of Sea Breeze, whispering like they just realized this wasn't a fun girl's trip, it was a federal crime scene. Jim zoomed in on her face. Bro, this is going on my Christmas cards. I nudged him. Jim, maybe don't. He shrugged. She already hates me. I'm just seasoning the stew. Karen, meanwhile, was throwing a full tantrum. You can't arrest me. This is an HOA-approved outing. An officer raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, HOAs don't govern maritime law. Well, they should. She attempted a dramatic hair flip, but with her hands cuffed behind her, she just wobbled like a furious flamingo. Jim whispered, "She's arguing jurisdiction with the Coast Guard." New level unlocked. Her friends, to their credit, approached me quietly. We didn't know she wasn't allowed to use your boat," one said. "How would she have been allowed?" "She said you gave permission." Snorted. "It's not a neighborhood library. You don't check out a boat for Girls' Day." They shrank instantly. They weren't malicious, just unfortunate enough to orbit Karen's delusion. One officer returned. "Sir, confirm this. Did the woman have your permission to operate your vessel?" "Absolutely not." Karen shrieked. "Yes, I did. He said I could with his eyes." Jim nearly passed out laughing. "Bro, she said you gave consent with your eyes." The officer didn't even blink. "Ma'am, that is not legal consent." "Yes, it is. In the HOA handbook, this is not governed by your HOA," he repeated slowly. Karen gasped again. "Well, it should be." Two more officers boarded Seabreeze, examining the hull. "Hard impact," one said. "You'll need repairs. We'll document everything." My chest tightened. I restored this boat with my own hands, sanding, polishing, painting. She was my weekends, my pride, my escape. Karen looked at my face and said, "Relax. It's just cosmetic." I snapped. "Cosmetic? You crashed my boat because you can't tell a throttle from toaster." She gasped dramatically. "You're being so dramatic." The officer cleared his throat. "Sir, would you like to accompany us while we process her detainment?" Before I could respond, Karen's husband Todd came jogging over, red-faced, tired, defeated. The man looked like he aged 10 years in 8 seconds. "Oh no," he muttered when he saw her cuffed. "Karen, what did you do?" "Tell them I had permission," she demanded. Todd stared at her like he was questioning every decision he had ever made. "Karen, were you actually allowed to use the boat?" "Yes." With his eyes. Jim collapsed. "Todd," she said, "I permission." Todd pinched the bridge of his nose. "Karen, sweetheart, that is not a thing." "Whose side are you on?" "The side of the guy whose boat you stole." "Borrowed." She screamed, loud enough to scare a flock of seagulls into the sky. Even her friends backed away. Todd sighed. "Karen, you can't borrow a boat without asking." She stomped. "Yes, I can." Asking was pointless. He would have said no. The officer, "Ma'am, that is a confession." "Karen, no, it's not." "Jim, yes, it is." I finally stepped forward, exhausted. "Karen, you didn't just steal my boat. You endangered people. You almost hit a fisherman. You broke maritime law. You damaged my property." "Oh, please," she interrupted. "Nobody died. It's fine." "It's not fine." She rolled her eyes. "Ugh, men and their toys." An officer approached with a clipboard. "Sir, we need your official statement and confirmation if you intend to press charges." Karen panicked. "No, don't. I said I'll pay for the damages." "Come on, be reasonable." Jim whispered, "She wants you to be reasonable." That's wild. A strange calm washed over me. I looked at the officer. "Yes, I'm pressing charges." Karen shrieked, a sound so sharp it could crack glass. "You can't. I'm the HOA president." Jim murmured, "Not anymore. After this hits Facebook." The officer corrected her gently. "No, ma'am. You're being arrested." Todd sighed like a man finally accepting fate. Karen was escorted fully aboard the patrol vessel, screaming about lawsuits, lawyers, and HOA bylaws that had zero relevance to federal waters. As the patrol boat pulled away, she slipped on the wet deck and landed flat on her butt. Jim whispered, "Slow-mo section." "Guaranteed." "You're posting that?" He showed me his screen. "It's already posted." "What? Already?" "Yep. We're at 20,000 views." Karen heard that. "What video?" But the patrol boat drifted out of earshot, leaving her speechless for the first time in recorded history. And honestly, it was beautiful. The marina exhaled. The chaos faded, but the aftermath remained. Witnesses murmured. Fishermen retold their near misses. Karen's friends stared at the ground like they wanted the ocean to swallow them. Jim replayed. Coast Guard officer, my heart sinking at every scratch. "You're lucky she didn't rupture the hull," he said. "Lucky," I repeated numbly. Jim tried to cheer me up, but even he knew this mess went beyond property damage. And then Todd approached, hands in pockets, shoulders heavy. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. I don't even know what to say anymore. Todd, she could have seriously hurt someone. I know. I told her not to go near your boat. She said she was taking initiative. Jim said, yeah, she took initiative straight into a felony. Todd didn't even argue. She's always been like this. My therapist says she's addicted to confrontation. Jim blinked. You have a therapist? I have to, Todd replied. I'm married to Karen. Fair enough. He sighed. I'll pay for everything. Whatever the damage is. I shook my head. It's not up to me anymore. The Coast Guard has it. Todd nodded, defeated. Right, of course. He walked away, leaving me staring out at the water knowing Karen's storm wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I never hated Todd. Honestly, I pitied the guy. Living with Karen had to feel like being trapped on a roller coaster with no brakes. Loud, exhausting, and constantly one scream away from disaster. But before I could feel too bad for him, my phone buzzed. For a second, I thought the Coast Guard was following up. Nope, worse. Jim leaned over my shoulder. Dude, is that what I think it is? It was Karen's meltdown, the one where she screamed, I borrowed it, at federal officers, had officially hit 1 million views. How? How is that even possible? I muttered. Jim smirked. It's the internet. People love a good villain. She's not a villain, I argued. Buddy, she stole your boat, nearly ran over a fisherman, ignored the Coast Guard, and quoted HOA bylaws at federal officers. She's basically the Thanos of our marina. Before I could respond, the Coast Guard officer approached with paperwork. We'll file everything today. Expect follow-up calls. And we'll need to repair. Estimate on the bow. Understood, I said, shaking his hand. When he left, Jim and I stood in silence on the deck. The water was calm again, nothing like the chaos Karen had whipped up minutes earlier. Jim finally broke the quiet. When she was whipping that boat around like a drunk flamingo, were you actually scared she'd flip it? Yes, Jim. Terrified. He nodded. Good, because I almost cried. We climbed off the boat and headed toward the parking lot. The crowd was gone. Karen's friends had vanished like witnesses fleeing a crime scene. But waiting for us near the entrance was the fisherman Karen nearly ran over. You the owner of that fancy boat? He asked. Yeah. He nodded toward the open water. Good. I hope they throw the book at her. You're not hurt, right? No. But I suddenly gained a fear of being murdered. And she triggered it. Jim lost it. The fisherman shook his head. I've seen idiots out here, but she's in a league of her own. She thinks she's above the rules, I admitted. He snorted. Well, the rules bit back today. After he walked off, Jim elbowed me. You hear that? Even strangers know she's the final boss of entitlement. He wasn't wrong. Karen didn't just break rules. She believed she was the exception to them. But this wasn't over. People like Karen never disappear quietly. They come back louder, angrier, and twice as dramatic. And sure enough, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number, the Coast Guard. Karen had given a statement, and they needed clarification. My stomach dropped. We drove to the station. Jim kept refreshing the video like he was monitoring stock prices. 2 million views. Jim, don't fight it. You're basically a boating legend now. When we walked inside, Officer Riley, the one who arrested Karen, motioned for us to sit. She opened a folder. First, the suspect claims vessel. Jim raised a hand. She said he gave permission with his eyes. Riley blinked. With his eyes? Direct quote, Jim said, very proud of himself. Riley continued. She also claims she was performing a sanctioned community event. What community event? I asked. Riley flipped the page. Something called HOA Coastal Enrichment. Jim slapped his hand over his mouth to keep from screaming with laughter. I groaned. She kidnapped my boat for a fake community event. Riley nodded. She also insisted that, as HOA president, she has authority over neighborhood property. My boat is not HOA property. We explained that. She disagreed. Of course she did. Riley went on. She also fled from us because she believed we were ruining her outing. Girls' Day, I muttered. Yes, Riley said. That. Then came a kicker. Karen is now facing 4 charges, possibly more. She damaged a federal navigation buoy. Jim whispered, she's speeding. I rubbed my face. So what now? She'll be processed, cited, and released. There's one more thing. Riley paused. She wants to talk to you. Absolutely not. Understood. We thanked her and headed out, and that's when we heard it. There he is. Jim groaned. Oh no, she escaped. Karen hadn't escaped. She was being escorted, still furious, still convinced she was the victim. You need to fix this. She snapped. Fix what? My arrest. My humiliation. My reputation. Jim whispered, too late for that. Karen spun toward him. Shut up, Jim. Then Jim showed her the TikTok. Her face was drained of color. What is that? Your close-up, Jim said. The internet loves your catchphrase. My what? He hit play. Her own voice blasted. It's a borrow. I have rights. Karen lunged for the phone. The officer caught her arm mid-swipe. Mom, do not attempt to grab his property. Take it down. Delete it. I'll SUE. Jim sipped his coffee. You were in a public marina committing a crime. This is all legal. My HOA status. My dignity. I couldn't resist. Karen, that ship sailed when you stole mine. She froze. You didn't borrow my boat. You stole it. You risked lives. And you damaged federal property. This is all a misunderstanding. She insisted. Ma'am, the officer said, time to go. Karen pointed at me, trembling with rage. This isn't over. You'll regret this. I'm still the HOA president. Even she didn't sound convinced. As she was escorted away, her complaints echoed down the hallway. Jim, watch her go. You know she's not done, right? I know. And the internet is obsessed with her now. I know that too. He grinned. So lunch? I laughed for the first time that day. Yeah, lunch. But deep down, I knew this was just Act 1. A wounded Karen is 10 times more dangerous. Karen stormed up to me like a Category 5 hurricane wearing a neon vest. Before I could even blink, she hissed, "This is your fault." I exhaled slowly. "Good morning, Karen." "It is not a good morning." She snapped. "Do you know how humiliating this is? People are pointing. They're whispering." I folded my arms. "Karen, you stole my boat." "I borrowed it." She shot back. "You crashed it into a buoy. A small buoy. You ignored the Coast Guard. They were interrupting my event." "There was no event." "Yes, there was," she insisted proudly. "Anhua questo endim et sudison." "You made that up." She jabbed her trash picker at my chest like a medieval spear. "You ruined my reputation." Before I could answer, Jim materialized behind me, sipping his iced coffee like he was watching live theater. "Actually," he said cheerfully, "you ruined your reputation. The internet just reported it." Karen spun toward him, furious. "You and that stupid phone. You turned me into a meme." Jim bowed. "My art has never been so appreciated." She spat. "I hate you." Jim shrugged. "Get in line." Karen whirled back to me, eyes wild. "You need to fix this. Tell them to take the video down." I laughed. "Karen, you can't take down the internet." "Yes, I can." "No, you can't. Watch me." She marched across the dock toward a group of teenagers laughing at their phones. "You, all of you, stop watching that," she commanded. A kid held up his phone. "Is this you?" Karen shrieked, then slapped the phone out of his hand. The marina's supervisor immediately swooped in and tore into her. I sighed. She's getting worse. "Oh yeah," Jim nodded. Entitlement always spirals before it dies. Hours later, the Real surprise arrived. Todd, pale, drained, and visibly aging by the minute, approached me quietly. "Can I sit?" "Of course." He sank down beside me like gravity had finally won. I wanted to apologize again and explain something. "What?" I asked. He took a shaky breath. "Karen has never handled consequences well. Ever. She grew up getting everything she wanted. No one told her no. And when we got married, I didn't realize she couldn't accept denial from anyone." I nodded slowly as the pieces finally clicked together. "She thinks rules are suggestions," he continued. "She believes she deserves special treatment. She thinks asking permission make her less than." "Yeah," I whispered, "that tracks." Todd's voice cracked. "She's terrified right now, not of the Coast Guard, not even the charges. She's scared because she can't control the narrative. People laughing at her? It's her worst nightmare. Maybe she should have thought about that before becoming a nautical menace." Todd didn't even argue. He stared at the ground. "I don't expect you to forgive her, but I hope one day you won't hate her." "I don't hate her," I said. "I just want her to stop hurting people." "Me too," he whispered. We sat in silence until my phone buzzed. "Coast Guard." Again. Jim leaned in, excited. Ooh, I love when you say oh no. I handed him the phone. He read aloud. Additional liabilities identified. Charges may escalate. Further testimony required. Jim gasped like he'd just witnessed a season finale twist. She's leveling up. Karen has unlocked. Federal consequences. Todd groaned and covered his face. And just like that, I knew we were nowhere near the end. The marina meltdown. Round 2 that night. As I prepped dinner, someone stomped up my driveway. Stomped, not walked. Then the doorbell rang at machine gun speed. My phone buzzed. Jim, bro, did Karen just run to your door? She looks like a flamingo that stepped on a rake. I opened the door. Karen stood there, sweating through her community service vest, mascara melting, sunglasses crooked, and rage trembling through her entire body. You ruined my life, she snarled. Karen, you stole my boat. You ignored the Coast Guard. You damaged federal property. That's not on me. This, she shoved her phone in my face, is your fault. On the screen, the viral video, the one where she confessed to borrowing my boat. I want it taken down. All of it. That's not how the internet works, I said. Fix it. How exactly would you like me to fix the entire internet? You started this, she cried. You called the Coast Guard instead of talking to me. You took my boat because you knew I'd say no. That's literally why permission exists. She stomped her foot so hard I thought she'd crack my porch boards. You don't understand. People are avoiding me. They're whispering. Someone filmed me picking up trash. Jim appeared behind me holding popcorn. I'm just here for the live show. Karen pointed at him. This is your fault too. Not my problem. Sunshine. Then she turned back to me, trembling. You're going to tell the Coast Guard to drop the charges. No. You're going to file a statement forgiving me. No. You're going to tell people the video is fake. No. She froze, like no one had ever told her that word before. I said gently, Karen, I'm not lying for you. You did this. You need to deal with it. For a brief moment, I saw something real, fear, confusion, something human. But it vanished just as fast. You'll regret this, she hissed. I doubt it, I replied. Off. Jim crunched popcorn. Honestly, she didn't throw anything. That's progress. And then she got worse. 2 days later, the Coast Guard called again. She's claiming you sabotaged your own boat, the officer said. Why would I do that? I asked. She says you're jealous of her HOA leadership. Jim almost passed out laughing. But the real moment, the moment everything shifted, came a week later. I returned to the marina. Karen was sweeping the dock under supervision. When she saw me, she froze, but didn't yell, didn't stomp, didn't threaten. She looked defeated. People keep recognizing me, she whispered. That happens when you go viral, I said. I hate it. I figured. For the first time ever, she wasn't acting entitled. She was just embarrassed. Woman's. Karen, I said softly, you can come back from this. But you have to own what you did. Do you think they'll forgive me? She asked quietly. I think people forgive faster than you expect, but only if you change. She looked down, voice trembling. I don't want to be a meme anymore. From behind a piling, Jim shouted, then stop behaving like one. Karen glared at him, but the venom was gone. Final reflection plus CTA, standing on the dock at sunset. I realized something important. Entitlement doesn't start with a stolen boat. It starts small, cutting corners, ignoring rules, believing you're the exception. And when no one pushes back, it grows until it hurts people. Consequences? They're not punishment. They're the only thing that finally makes somebody listen. So let me ask you, what would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And if you enjoyed this wild HOA disaster, like the video, comment your take, share it with a friend, subscribe for more unbelievable stories, only on Neighbor Wars HQ.